Okay, I think we're good again. It's been a while since we've done this, so just want to make sure that everything is up and running. Oh, I gotta do one thing here yet. Oh no. Interesting. 1 second. Weird. Okay, we'll cancel this. And looks like Facebook made some changes, so I don't think we're gonna make it to the Life Here at McLaurin YouTube group right away. Maybe, Peter, we'll just break on this. I'm sorry. Everything's ready to
No
go and
worries.
it's streaming, but it's not going to go to. I have to see if I can still make it to the Life at McLaurin Facebook page. Well, we can do it because it'll actually go to my personal page and I can probably share it to the group. So we'll just do it anyway. And I think it's actually still going to YouTube.
Yeah, okay.
So, yep. So with all that said, why don't you just lead us off? Sorry for the wait there. First time back after a while.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a while since we've done Living in the Scriptures live, so it's kind of exciting to be able to come back. We're looking back at the sermon last week called The Way of the Cross. It's Mark 8:31 to 9:1, and it's right after Peter confesses that Jesus is the Messiah. And Jesus, of course, drops the bomb and says, I'm going to tell you what kind of Messiah I am. I'm the Messiah that's going to lay down his life, and the authorities are going to kill me, and I will come back. But of course, that's not the end of it. Jesus then says, you must actually follow me. Deny yourself, pick up the cross, and follow me. And then he proceeds to explain what that means. You know, that idea of anyone who loses their life for me and the gospel will save it. And anyone who tries to save their life or gain their life will actually lose it. And we talked about the fact that that word life there is in the Greek is psyche, which doesn't just mean, you know, heart stop day or, you know, you're alive and stuff like that. It actually means personality or identity. And that idea of like, if you try to build your life or your identity around anything else other than me, Jesus, and the gospel, you will be disappointed. And I wanted to kind of just come off of right off of it and just say, um, this is not that those things in the world are inherently evil. We're not, we're not subscribing to an ascetic lifestyle that, you know what, you know, jobs, family, career, money, that's like the tool of the devil and it's evil. No, basically, Jesus is saying if you set your heart on those things to fulfill you and to make you your life and gain your life, you will be sorely disappointed. They will not fulfill you. And one of them, when we talked about it, is how he contrasts the idea of the world and our soul. And the idea is that these things cannot sustain our soul. And I think that's really interesting. I found that really interesting this week. And a big part of the difference between world and the soul is that they kind of will operate on different paradigms and realities. And the big one is timeline, right? If you're just thinking this world, well, eat, sleep, and be merry, that's all that we have, well, then that's fantastic. And those things are great. But if you're thinking about the depth of our soul, they don't quite satisfy. And the two of the things that we talked about was timeline and depth. And when it came to timeline, this idea of it's going to look very different if we think of 10 years or 10,000 years. And that idea of meditating on eternity. So I'm going to ask you, Caleb, what does it mean to meditate on eternity for you? What does it mean and how does it actually work in your life? Where does it kind of bring you as you look upon heaven, look upon, when we've been there 10,000 years, no less days to sing God's praise. Tell me about that.
Sure. When I was a kid, I really struggled with the concept of forever, whether it was forever after we die, whether that forever was a good forever or a bad forever. It was a weird thought to me, and I didn't like it. I kind of needed there to be an end of some sort, and I don't understand exactly where that was coming from. But then as you grow old and you experience things in older, I'm talking quite young. It's a pretty early memory. I don't know how young I was. I would have been maybe 5 or 6 at the time. As you grow older, you have experiences and you start to realize, well, I actually kind of like these experiences I'm having, but I also the joy of them, or the life that that you gain out of these experiences, the experience of them fades. And it doesn't matter how good it is when it's in the past, you can't draw on that well of that experience forever. For me then, really started to struggle with, well, how can you can't just chase positive experience forever either. And I mean, it's a longer philosophical journey, I suppose, but I came to the point of realizing that that's what heaven is for. I don't have a capacity to enjoy life forever now. I need to take a break. I need to go to sleep, and my body will deteriorate and die. And as I get older, I actually don't have a capacity to enjoy life in some of the ways that I used to when I was younger. So when my meditations on heaven then have come around to this, I will be able to enjoy life in an ongoing sense, and at a deeper level than I have now. But I still think of it in terms as an extension of life. So when I talk about my kids, they say, well, what's heaven like? Or when I'm talking to actually almost anybody, I've started to use this language. So think about the world you're living in now. There are things about it that continue on forever. There's things about how we live, how we relate, that those things will go on. So I say heaven is like all the best things about this world, only without any of the bad things, and only better all the time. And I've come to think of eternity in really earthy terms. I'm not going to say earthly in terms of like this present age, but as an embodied experience of the world around me and of the relationships I have with the people around me. Those things will continue forever. How then should I live if the fact that, Peter, if I'm going to see you maybe not every single day, but I will see you forever. Me and you are going to have to deal with each other forever.
Is that heaven or a nightmare?
Well, the thing is, we're going to have a capacity to do that for love that increases.
Absolutely.
And in the world to come, you and I are not going to have any of the characteristics that would maybe cause us to stumble over each other anyway. And just use you as an example. I start to think about that with all of the people that I'm with. Like, if you are also in Christ, these experiences are going to go on forever. So I think about it as a really embodied experience. I don't necessarily know if I'll do the same things that I'm doing now, only in a greater way. I don't exactly know what the world to come will look like, what our abilities will be, but partnership, pursuit, progress, relationship, all of those things that we enjoy in life, recreation, meaningful work, those things continue on. So, and I think when my meditations are on eternity, they start there, and there's a lot more to them that I could maybe talk about, but yeah.
Thanks, Caleb, for that. And I didn't mean anything. Like, Caleb and I, great relationship. Love to spend eternity with you, my
Yeah,
friend.
it's gonna be good.
Maybe part of it was I watched that movie What About Bob not too long ago, and it's the Bill Murray one. It's just like it's another story. We won't go down that road.
Awesome.
But but that idea that, for me, a lot of it is that scripture says, in his presence, in God's presence, there is joy forevermore. And that my joy will reach its fullness at that time. Right now, we just see dimly. And I think I agree with you that, heaven isn't this ethereal, we float in the clouds sort of thing. But if my reading of Revelation is correct, heaven comes down to earth. And so there's a merging of God's realm and our realm, and everything is made new. It's restored, right? So it's not, our hope is not disembodiment, but in resurrection and new bodies and that life evermore. And when I really think about it, like how often for me this week, maybe I don't meditate on eternity enough, because when I think about that, when I really think about which perspective, it really comes down to where is your ultimate home? Like Paul would sit there and say, my citizenship is not of this world, right? And yet he was a very proud citizen of Rome. I'm a very proud citizen of Canada, but my ultimate home is not Canada. My ultimate home is greater than that. And that idea of it. So that's kind of, really kind of brought us back to this idea. And I like what Randy Alcorn and many others talk about heaven. Like, really, the more we know about it, the greater we are at living this life well.
I agree. And it kind of depends on whose measure you're measuring up to. But if you're trying to follow Christ in any sense, you need to have a perspective of heaven that looks beyond the death of beyond the separation of your body and soul, death. You need to be able to look past that. Jesus embodies that so clearly. From the time he starts his ministry, he has some ups and downs, but it's a hard road. It's kind of a long road, and there's some high points along the way for sure. But he goes to die, and his life, it's not in a blaze of glory. It's like in the final week there of his life, one by one, all of the crutches and all of the supports and all of the things that you might find solace in, they all get stripped away one at a time until he's left alone. And it truly is the ultimate tragedy. It's at the peak of his life, 33 years old, physically, physiologically, at the peak of his influence, and in the just when he should be blossoming and stepping into the greatness of his efforts, he's cut off. And but he wasn't passive. He wasn't a victim. This was the future he sought by the leading of the Spirit through God's purpose to gain a crown. to gain the name above every other name, to gain the highest throne, to gain all dominion and authority, to gain resurrection. Christ earned it as a man. Christ earned it on merit, the merit of his perfection. God, there's no reason for you to be dead in the grave. There's no sin in you. You have to live. And I mean, as God, he's God, and so he deserves it. It's just his nature. He can't die. So he's alive, and his rule and reign begin after his death. And with that, the whole universe is in a sense resurrected and given a new hope through the resurrection of Christ, and it's all after his death. So we need to think of ourselves in the same way, where this is practice, this is preparation, this is not the big show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is not. And so whether we have it or we don't, I think there's a view of heaven where it's like, well, we need to actually really like almost embrace a self-harm sort of ethic. It's like, no, I don't think that's it. But you just need to become really, really indifferent to your circumstances and really, really attentive to your spirit and to your ethics and to your relationships. Because those things are the things that matter and will carry on and will be made. In fact, you could even say they will be made evident. Right now, who we are truly is obscured. But there's coming a day when in the resurrection, the things that are hidden will be brought to light, including, I think, the hidden glories of our character and our perseverance. So we really need to let go of the things that they have no eternal weight. They have no ability to bless us beyond the temporary. If we have them, great. Let's use them. Let's enjoy them. Enjoying life is important, and God gives people the ability to enjoy life when they're walking with Him. But whether they have lots or little, some people have lots and they're tormented by it. That's no good either. So
no, exactly. Well, let's take a moment to flex a little bit more of our meditation muscles or our Christian imagination muscles, right? Like, I love that idea that there's two courts, a human court and a divine court, heaven court. And in the divine court, it says, anyone, towards the end of chapter 8, if anyone is ashamed of me and my words in this generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes into the Father's glory with the holy angels. When Matthew checks in on this, he adds, whoever acknowledges me before others, I will always also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. So I want to sit there and ask you, like, what will that be like? Like, this just kind of flex, because I think we don't think about this enough. I kind of looked at it during the sermon, and I just kind of said, think about, the throne room in heaven, Revelation chapter 4, 5, 6, and even, chapters 20 and 21, where Jesus is enthroned. And man, like, what would it be like to be acknowledged by Jesus in something like that? So I'm just going to ask you, like, when you think about that, what kind of comes to mind? That was me kind of interpreting and just kind of, trying to even grasp at the idea that when Jesus says, when I come in glory, in the Father's glory, I'm going to pull Caleb Penner up and just say, hey, this is Caleb Penner. What does that look like?
I'm not sure. I know how good it will be. It'll be incomparable. Yep. You can see the echoes of that in when people meet somebody famous, or when they get a shout out. I remember when I wrote a letter into Nintendo Power magazine when I was in 7th grade, and they published it. It was in the magazine. You could see my name. You could see my letter. That felt like, for a grade 7 kid who likes video games, that was like solid gold.
Bomb.
That was so cool. Yeah. I felt so awesome because I got that that was me. Look at me. Look where that's my name in that magazine. And people get really excited about that, being whether it's published or whether you get a shout out or you get a picture of the celebrity. That's like small potatoes. We don't have we have such a bad view I think in some cases deservedly so, of our politicians. And so like this, the kind of like the supreme leaders that we have, it's like, maybe you get a thumbs up with them, but there's no sense of awe or reverence really before them, I don't think. In many cases, nothing at all like perhaps what it would have been like for kings and dignitaries of the time that Jesus is living and writing, like, because if you don't show that, they have the power to. I was reading Daniel with my kids, and it's like King Darius had the power to. He killed whomever he wanted, and he did not kill whoever he wanted. Like that's the degree of power that they wield, and so they command a lot of awe. And here you have Christ returning with his holy angels to take over all of the universe in a very visible way. And once he's done that, he's like, all right, now I'm going to recognize some people. And it's hard to fathom. It really is. However, we need to be really clear, I think, how easy it is to acknowledge Jesus. It's not hard. Just open your mouth and say it. I love Jesus Christ. He's awesome. Okay, now do that in front of somebody. Like, bring him up when you have a conversation. Oh, but I'll feel weird. You have no idea. You have no idea like what you are letting go in those opportunities. You have no idea what you can secure for yourself in those opportunities to just acknowledge the name of Christ before somebody. It doesn't say you have to die for him, although it means that for some people that will happen. It has happened. All you have to do is acknowledge him. Hey, Jesus is excellent. Jesus is the true king. However that comes up in your opportunities. I have missed so many opportunities, okay? And we can't, like, I don't think we can write that off like, it's okay, Jesus loves you. No. I had chances that I missed. I can't undo them. But I can make, Jesus still loves me. I'm going to be there. But I need to use that as fuel so that I don't do that again. And it's not just because it's the right thing to do. It's because I'm missing out. I'm missing out on when it's Jesus' turn to hand out some acknowledgments. I want to be on that list. So that's something that we should be clear on, even though like what that is going to be. I mean, I have no idea. It's kind of,
but it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And I like what you said. All right, go ahead.
No, I talked enough.
No, I like what you said about like, it's easy. And it doesn't always sit there and say, what, hey, billboard saying, I'm a Christian, I love Jesus. You could do that. That's awesome. But like you said, in conversation, and it's a great reminder for myself that so often I don't give credit where credit is due. Like some people might ask, hey, why is this? Why are you doing well in this situation? Why did you more often, when I think about that first office, like, why is your marriage working out well? Well, it's because Christ is in my life and he has guided me well. And that, the reason why, I have a certain relationship with my children is because God has been good to me and has taught me. And those are the things that I think I need to give Jesus more credit for in my life, because I shudder. I've said this to many people. I shudder to think Jesus intercepted my life at 21, and I shudder to think what my life would be like now that it's 30 something odd years later if Jesus hadn't intercepted my life. And think about all the things and all the decisions and all the paths that I would have went down if Jesus didn't quite intercept my life at the age of 21. And I need to remember that. And that's on top of, and that's the reason why I follow him. That's the reason why I love him. That's part of the reason why. And I need to be more bold at times when people ask, like, hey, why is this happening in my life? It's because Jesus is in my life.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that much. If Jesus wasn't in my life, I'd be much more of a wreck. And I'm so thankful that Jesus is in my life. And yeah, absolutely. Was there anything else that kind of stood out to you this last week, Caleb? Because that's about
No, I mean the
where
paradox
I'm
is
about.
just the paradox part is important to remember.
Yeah,
It doesn't seems like the way of weakness is not, or um, the way of self denial is not in your best interests at times. But we have to give up our mindset. We have to change our mind if we want to follow Christ, because he has information that we don't. He has a perspective that we don't. His is always right, and we are in needing of constant adjustment. And so you have to be changing your mind. You have to be, okay, I was thinking about it this way. I need to come around to a different way of thinking. And in that, if we can do that, then we will, Jesus says, you will find your life, like your existence will, you will find your spiritual vitality, and you will also find the knowledge that you will go on forever with him in the new world, forgiven of your sin and all of that. So
right on. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. You know what, people, got to come back, because Mark is the only place where Jesus predicts his death 3 times in very short order between chapters 9 and 10. He predicts his death 3 times, and 3 times in his own different way, he's saying, come follow me. That it's going to look different, but this is the path of life. And that path of life is going to be paradoxical when we compare it to what the world says is this is life. And it's like you said, it's a renewing of the mind. And so thank you. That's awesome. That's about all that I have.
oh, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for Living in the Scriptures Live. And this is live here at McLaurin. Blessings, folks.
Right on.